President of the United States calling for the execution of members of Congress because they publicly recited the law is obviously a reason to invoke the 25th Amendment to remove that president from office for extreme mental incapacity and possible dementia. But the White House press corps, who would collectively scream at Joe Biden if he misstated a single word, never mind the law, never mind the Constitution, take it in stride when Donald Trump spews madness like that. Imagine what the country would have said about a president who announced he was no longer going to spell the words Supreme Court with a capital S and a capital C because he's mad at the Supreme Court. Prior to Donald Trump, that would have been taken as a conclusive indicator of madness and an incapacity to serve as president. But at 7:06 a.m. today, Donald Trump posted, "The Supreme Court will be using lowercase letters for a while based on a complete lack of respect, exclamation point." If I tried that in the third grade at St. Brendan's Elementary School, I would have gotten in trouble for conduct beneath the dignity of a third grader. But the White House press corps accepts it. They have to accept it because the avalanche of madness is just too big. It's too big to catch up with every piece of it and react to it the way it should be reacted to. But if the next president has a typo in a social media post, you can bet the White House press corps will jump all over it, the way they always used to. Joe Biden's decision-making as president, which is what the job really is, it's decision-making, it's not athleticism, was as impressive as any president in history. And Donald Trump's decision-making is the worst, by far. Voters seem to recognize that now, with new polls showing that if the Biden versus Trump election were held today, Donald Trump would lose. Donald Trump is the only president demented or stupid enough to believe that the president has the unlimited power to set tariffs. Every other president knew what the Constitution says about that. Donald Trump doesn't know what the Constitution is or where to find one, and would be completely flummoxed by the prose style of the Constitution because it doesn't call America the hottest country in the world, a favorite Trump expression that does not refer to climate change, but he thinks sounds really cool and positive. Not a single faithful viewer of this program was even slightly surprised by the Supreme Court's decisive ruling on Friday that Donald Trump's tariffs are illegal and unconstitutional. We have been telling you that from this desk at this hour since Donald Trump illegally imposed his first tariff. Donald Trump is now threatening to impose a worldwide tariff of 15% on imports to the United States from everywhere in the world, a tariff that will be paid in the United States by Americans, like all Trump tariffs, and a tariff that is also illegal and unconstitutional. Former acting Solicitor General in the Obama administration, Neil Katyal, argued the tariff case in the Supreme Court against the Trump tariffs and won on every single point that he argued to the court. On page 5 of Chief Justice John Roberts' opinion of the court, the chief quotes Article 1 of the Constitution saying, quote, "The Congress shall have power to lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and excises." Duties are, of course, tariffs. And the Chief Justice exposed Donald Trump's tariffs for what they are, a sales tax paid by Americans. The chief wrote, "A tariff, after all, is a tax levied on imported goods and services." The Chief Justice was forced to write a sentence that no previous Supreme Court justice has ever had to write. Quote, "The United States, after all, is not at war with every nation in the world." That was the court's response to Donald Trump's claim of a national emergency that would justify his tariffs worldwide. The Chief Justice exposed Donald Trump's ludicrous lie that foreign countries pay the Trump illegally imposed tariffs. The chief wrote, "Tariffs operate directly on domestic importers to raise revenue for the Treasury. A domestic importer is a company here in the United States or a person here in the United States who has to pay the Trump tariffs only when the goods enter the United States." The opinion of the court could not have been simpler, and for such an important case, it could not have been shorter, only 21 pages. That's how simple it was. The decision was 6-3, with a silent Samuel Alito joining losers Clarence Thomas and Brett Kavanaugh. Brett Kavanaugh saw the opinion as an opportunity to file his 63-page application for the job of Chief Justice. Brett Kavanaugh's absurdly long and perversely twisted 63-page dissent was a juvenile exercise to impress one person who cannot read. Donald Trump, who struggles to read the simple words in big print in his teleprompters, obviously does not have the mental capacity to attempt to read a single sentence of a Supreme Court opinion or dissent. The ambitious Brett Kavanaugh is 61 years old, and if John Roberts retires anytime soon, Brett Kavanaugh would surely raise his hand requesting a promotion to Chief Justice, which would then leave the vacancy on the court to be filled by Donald Trump's most reliable judge of all, Judge Aileen Mercedes Cannon, the inexperienced federal judge in Florida, who today ruled that Jack Smith's written report of his investigation of Donald Trump's illegal possession of classified documents cannot be released to Congress or the public. Judge Cannon wants that report sealed away from history. That opinion, written today, is her 15-page application for a Supreme Court seat if 77-year-old Clarence Thomas decides he wants to spend the rest of his days living full-time in the vacation luxury provided to him by Republican billionaires. The Supreme Court decision means that everyone who paid the tariffs has a claim for a refund. The United States Treasury is the biggest refunder in the world. The Treasury knows exactly how to do this and could do it by computer easily. The Treasury has records of exactly who paid which tariffs at which port of entry, on which day, in what amount, just like the Treasury has precise records of every penny of tax withholding from your paychecks all year long. And when the Treasury finds that too much money was withheld from your paycheck, you become one of the 117 million people who gets a tax refund from the Treasury on April 15th. In a typical year, the Treasury refunds an estimated $300 billion to income tax filers. The Treasury knows how to do this, but Donald Trump's Treasury wants to keep that illegally collected money because that is now the official Republican Party position. If your government illegally takes your money, the government doesn't have to give it back to you. That's the Republican position. So Democrats, who already had a strong campaign position in the coming congressional elections, have a new question for voters to ask Republican candidates. Where's my refund? Multiple studies indicate that the average American spends thousands of dollars indirectly paying illegal Trump tariffs. So that means every voter has a moral right to ask, where's my refund? Eventually, the companies like the electronic stores and the grocery stores who paid the tariffs will get their refunds directly from the Treasury, but they will be under no obligation to pass those refunds along to consumers. So a Republican president has illegally taken roughly $200 billion from American voters, and Donald Trump and Republican members of Congress have absolutely no intention of even trying to give that money back. Every voter should ask every Republican candidate, where's my refund? And everyone at the next Trump rally should be shouting to their hero, Donald Trump, where's my refund? The overwhelming majority of Americans know who took their money. 64% disapprove of Donald Trump's tariffs in a Washington Post poll. And a CNN poll, 63% of Americans disapprove of Donald Trump. So that is almost two-thirds of Americans who know who took their money and who owes them a refund. 68% say Donald Trump hasn't paid enough attention to the country's most important problems. Those 68% are watching Donald Trump literally demolish the White House, and publicly spend his time concentrating on creating a temple to himself in its place, a completely unnecessary ballroom. How could there be a single voter out there who thinks Donald Trump cares more about them than he cares about his ballroom? 62% oppose Donald Trump's immigration and customs enforcement tactics. Tonight, another Republican member of the House of Representatives is facing calls to resign from Republicans after a Texas news website published text messages from Republican Congressman Anthony Gonzalez. Even some Republicans in the House now are calling for his resignation. Representative Nancy Mace wrote, Republican Nancy Mace wrote, quote, "These text messages are disgusting and inexcusable. A member of Congress harassing his own staffer in the middle of the night asking for explicit photos, pressing her on sexual positions. Regina Santos Aviles told him he was going too far. He did not care. He kept going. She is gone now. Her son is growing up without his mother. And Tony Gonzalez is campaigning like nothing happened. We have zero tolerance for those who abuse their power over others. Zero. It does not matter what party you are in, what title you hold, or how powerful you think you are. You do not get a free pass. Tony Gonzalez should resign immediately and be held fully accountable for what he's done. She and her family deserve better, and Texans deserve a congressman who does not prey on women. Anthony Gonzalez has denied the affair. Regina Santos Aviles took her own life 5 months ago.